During the early morning hours of April 11th, 2015, we waited for train 38E at Grass Lake after receiving a report from our friends Ryan and Sean Caton that Norfolk Southern Triclops SD60M number 6812 was leading the train west. At Jackson Yard, around 1 a.m., we watched as the train slowly crept by the yard office in sub-zero temperatures. We typically don't film trains at night, but when we do, it's for something really rare. Norfolk Southern acquired 9 SD60Ms of Burlington Northern heritage in 2014 in order to augment a motive power shortage that summer. The 9 SD60Ms, famous for their 3-piece cab windows, quickly became railfan favorites. Unfortunately, their time on Norfolk Southern was short-lived. By 2019, all 9 units were retired. Some were sold to Progress Rail, while others were scrapped. 6812 was scrapped by K&K Recycling in Adrian, Michigan. Later that same day, 38E made its last daylight run over the Amtrak Michigan line. In the afternoon, we set up shop at Control Point Miller, just east of Jackson Yard, where we patiently waited for the train. In charge of the train that day was a former Southern Pacific AC 4400 and an SD70AH. Note the somewhat rare flashing ditch lights on the former Southern Pacific GE. At the time this footage was recorded, CP Miller was the only remaining control point on the Michigan line to feature a New York Central steam-era bracket mast signal. Note the dial arm to the right. The blue circle indicated that there was a track between the signal mast and the track to which the signal applied. Around this time period, it was rumored that trains 38 and 39E would no longer run to Jackson. Instead of a road train, a local would run as a turn job from Jackson to Kalamazoo, where the Watco-owned Grand Elk Railroad would handle the train the rest of the way into Elkhart, Indiana.
Roger, thank you. Goodbye now.
As the train approached the yard, it ducked under the US 127 overpass, a 758-mile-long highway that stretches between Grayling, Michigan and Chattanooga, Tennessee. At Jackson Yard, we paused to take a closer look at the Armour yellow locomotives. The SD70AH would lead the train back to Elkhart later that evening. The next day, we returned to C.P. Miller to document Amtrak Wolverine number 353 as it approached Jackson. After seeing train 353 duck under the 127 bridge, we ventured to downtown Jackson, where the rather late train 350 was stopped just west of the searchlight signals at C.P. Jackson.
Stop C.P. Jackson, 2 East 350, Dearborn dispatcher.
NS Dearborn.
Dearborn, 350, unit 28, ready to copy, over.
Roger that. We've got a 10-mile-an-hour speed restriction, 10 mph on the main. Milepost is going to be MH71.5, over.
Understand we have a 10 1 knot miles per hour on the single main there. Milepost is 71.5, 10 mile an hour, 71.5, over.
Roger that. That is correct. Time is 12:18 LVB.
Roger that, okay, 12:18 LVZ, over.
Lima Victor Bravo.
Lima Victor Bravo. Roger that, over.
Roger that. Thank you.
Nice, Dearborn, 50. 50, department. Roger that, here we go, approach C.P. Jackson, Robin Jackson.
Later that evening, we caught local train B22 as it was returning from Albion with a pair of GP38-2s and 5 cars. Note the Toy House sign to the right. As the train passes the New York Central searchlight signals at C.P. Jackson, note the foundation for the new cantilever signal. Jumping ahead of the train, we caught up with the B-22 at Elm Street as it arrived at Jackson Yard. On another windy April day, we returned to Control Point Miller to watch as eastbound Wolverine number 350 passed the tri-light signals. Note the short pot signal below the tall bracket mast. This signal controlled the yard lead for eastbound trains departing Jackson. By 2016, all of the remaining New York Central Searchlight and Tri-Light signals through Jackson were replaced. Under the New York Central, Miller was actually called CP Falahy after the nearby Falahy Road. After the Conrail rationalization, it was called CP East Jackson. Later on, Norfolk Southern changed the name again to CP Miller because they thought that crews would confuse the CP East Jackson with CP Jackson. Miller was named so for Miller Truck and Storage, the present-day owners of the former Michigan Central Railroad shops at Jackson Yard. As the sun was setting, we returned to Jackson to document Wolverine number 355 arriving and departing Jackson Station. On this date, our friends Sean and Ryan Caton joined us to record the train passing by the old searchlight signals at CP Jackson. The signal to the far left, which you'll see as the camera zooms out, controlled the Jackson and Lansing Railroad at Francis Street and dated back to the steam era. The signal mast to the right, with the letter D to signify the distant signal, was established around 1960 when the New York Central Railroad changed the track layout in downtown. At the throttle that evening was engineer Dawn Marie Odell. At the time, she was one of only 2 female engineers on the Amtrak Michigan line. Dawn is always friendly to rail fans and frequently waves to say hello whenever she passes by.
Amtrak 355, clear to depart Jackson on the approach limited. Roger on that 30 and 75, 776, main 1.
Amtrak 355 departing Jackson on the approach limited. Roger on our 30, 75, 7 and 76.
On another cold and windy spring day, we waited at Mechanic Street to document Amtrak Wolverine number 353 as it departed Jackson. Unfortunately, these unique signals were removed and replaced in 2015. Another set of grade crossing signals similar to this pair remains in service in Blissfield, Michigan. As the train rolls by, you can hear our friend Amtrak conductor Danny Kaye shout out "Delay in block." On Mother's Day 2018, we documented the Mechanic Street crossing from the air as Jackson and Lansing Railroad train JL1 was given permission to cross the Amtrak Michigan line at CP Jackson. Note the present-day grade crossing signals as well as the new cantilever-style signal now controlling the interlocking. Going back to April of 2015, on another afternoon, we found Amtrak Wolverine Train 353 stopped at CP Hill near Lawrence Avenue. We decided to walk back to the train to visit with the crew as they waited on eastbound Wolverine number 350, which was running about 40 minutes behind schedule. Between Porter, Indiana and Chicago, Illinois, Amtrak trains take the Norfolk Southern Chicago line. Since freight trains are the priority on the busy corridor, Amtrak trains are frequently delayed. At CP Hill, you can see train 350 taking the siding. This section of double track continues for 6 miles to CP Miller at milepost 72. After 350 clears Hill, train 353 will be permitted to continue west. The overall theme of this production is trains or locomotives that you just can't see anymore. Well, here's a locomotive in a paint scheme that you certainly can't see anymore. On April 4th, 2015, 2 Amtrak P42 diesels were used in a special power move out of Chicago. We caught the pair in Michigan City, Indiana. The P32s are part of a series of 20 GE products built in 1991 to grace Amtrak's rails. The 519 was one of the last, if not the last, true Amtrak locomotive to wear the Phase 4 livery. Since the Dash 8 locomotives were not equipped with ITCS at the time, this was the first time in 4 years that a pair had operated over the Michigan line. Without an FRA waiver, the P42s can't operate over an ITCS-equipped railroad. On this day, however, the locomotives were permitted to run over the Michigan line to milepost 228 so that they could pick up a cut of loaded ballast cars. Quite a few Amtrak personnel were needed to make this special move, including a road foreman and a train master. While in the yard, the two P42s met a South Shore local freight train, which would be doing some switching in the area. Earlier in the video, we showed a Norfolk Southern maintenance of way train between Jackson and Chelsea back in 2013. By 2014, Amtrak was handling the maintenance of the corridor between Dearborn and Porter, Indiana. After catching the meet, we ventured over to CP Drawbridge, where we caught Amtrak's eastbound Wolverine number 352. After catching the 352, we caught westbound Wolverine number 353 under the former New York Central era steam locomotive coaling tower. After the two Amtrak trains cleared Michigan City, the South Shore local was permitted over the Michigan line so that it could return to South Shore-owned rails. In August of 2015, we caught the same pair of 4-axle Dash 8 locomotives in Jackson. From the station platform, we watched as local train B42 passed the P42s at CP Jackson while returning from Albion. After B-22 cleared CP Jackson, we set up near Francis Street to record the two P-32s departing town. As the train passes by our camera, you'll see crewman Lee Lovelet stepping out to wave at us. At Albion, we caught the train again as it made its way west towards Battle Creek. In Battle Creek, we caught the train at the Post Factory west of Hinman Yard. Battle Creek is known as Cereal City, USA, due to the fact that both Post and Kellogg's are headquartered there. Both companies have been making cereals in Battle Creek for over 125 years. This was the last time we saw the train before the crew tied down west of CP Custer. On the evening of June 14, 2015, we revisited Norfolk Southern's Jackson Yard to watch train B33 depart during the golden hour sunlight. The train had 93 cars in tow, which was one of the longest trains we've seen originate out of Jackson. B33 is the local that replaced trains 38 and 39E. The train's motive power consisted of a top hat Dash 940C, nicknamed so for the air conditioner unit above the cab roof, and an Operation Lifesaver GP60, EMD's last North American 4-axle locomotive. At the time this video was recorded, Norfolk Southern was the only operator of the Dash 940C, with 125 locomotives once on the roster. After their initial order in 1995, the FRA demanded that Norfolk Southern purchase the wide cab version of the Dash 9 for safety reasons. If the FRA hadn't stepped in, all of Norfolk Southern's Dash 9s would likely have been equipped with standard cabs. Jackson Yard is home to the former Michigan Central Railroad shops. Now owned by Miller Truck and Storage, the shops still stand in 2022. Built in 1872 and designed by master builder Henry H. Gardner, the shops were the Central's main repair facilities in the United States. Since Jackson is centrally located in southern Michigan, it made for the perfect location for the railroad's locomotive and car shops. The shops permanently closed as a repair facility in the mid-1970s. After a series of fires, Miller Trucking rebuilt most of the interior of the historic shop buildings that are now utilized as warehouse and storage space for large equipment and machinery for customers. Jumping ahead of the train, we set up our cameras at CP Hill. CP Hill is located near Jackson County's Reynolds Airfield. Reynolds is where the NASCAR drivers were flying home from Sunday's rain-tormented race at Michigan International Speedway. After the westbound Wolverine cleared, we caught the train as it slowly accelerated over the crest of Jackson Hill.
P43s, up a clear hill. Here we go.
we caught the train one more time in the setting sun at Albion, Michigan. Albion's depot was built for the Michigan Central in 1882. The MC depot was abandoned in the early 1970s, but was restored by local community groups in the mid-80s. Today, it once again serves passengers as well as inner-city buses under Greyhound. A portion of the building is rented out to private businesses, thus generating income for maintenance. This was our last time catching train B33 before nightfall. From Albion, the train continued on to Battle Creek, where it would wait for permission over the Canadian National before arriving in Kalamazoo later that night. Thank you for watching Delay in Block Productions. We hope you enjoyed reminiscing with us as we looked back at some of our favorite Michigan line memories from the last decade. Until next time, happy railroading.